All right, so let's talk about Last Chance qualifiers. I don't really know how to intro this, so I'm not even going to do an intro at all. The Yinsu
Wait,
and Tom,
do you want me to do the intro for you?
if you want, if you must.
All right. Shut up, Tom. That's my intro. What's up, guys? It's your boy RyanCentral YouTube channel. Welcome, where all the good content is at. I'm Yinsu, and I feel like I shouldn't be here because I'm bringing simply too much hair, Ryan, to your channel, and I apologize in advance for that.
It's all right. It's not your fault. I don't have good genes. I'm pretty sure Tom will say the same overall. And
I have great genes.
So obviously people are going to be wanting to watch EMEA because we won Berlin. We have the best region. And so there might be a lot more interest in the region, certainly when it comes to one of these 8 teams going to champions, to add to the other 3 from EMEA going to champions, right? So we'll start with Anubis then, because...
Anubis. Well, no, to cut that out. Yeah. I just wanted to do that.
That's a good
Sue has been cancelled. Thank you very much. There's the end of
I think Anubis is a weird one because it's not just EMEA, it's like Middle East and North Africa this time as well. Winner of Strike Arabia would join, so it's 7 teams from the traditional EMEA, I guess you could call it, which is Europe, CIS, and Turkey, and then 1 team from the Middle East, North African region, which was Anubis that won that event. They could be better than teams like Fublist, OBG, we don't know, but this is a team that has at least been somewhat consistent, and we've had 1 player that actually is on Anubis that did play in EMEA previously, which was Shalabi.
I wanted to talk about that actually, because I think I feel like Shalabi was dealt a pretty terrible hand no matter how you look at it when he went to Vitality, so I don't think anybody can really judge him purely based on that stint. However, even though he wasn't dealt the nicest hand and all the pressure surrounding that situation, I felt like he did all right. I felt like he did good enough, and that's why I'm excited to see how the team deals with being in EMEA, given that they actually play together. Like, Shalabi does not play for Team Vitality. He was a stand-in, and he did all right. So I feel for them a little bit. They're going up against G2 first, but I would not be surprised if they knock someone out. I would not be surprised.
I want to even touch on the Shalabi thing a little bit, that I almost want to ignore every single performance we've seen from him so far, because from what I gather, he was probably on fairly high ping, but I think that's a given. I can't say it for sure, but I'd say it's likely. He also didn't play agents he played, which I think as a set, firstly, I have to look at Vitality and go, what were you doing? Like, why did you bring this guy in to not play the agents that he is absolutely unbelievable on within his own region? But now we can at least look at it, because statistically, okay, sure, again, it's against local opposition, but he's putting up nut stats. Like, you look at 22 performances on Raze, 281 ACS, like, stats alone, that's crazy good. So hopefully he's going to step up. You've also got, I think it's Avez as well, who's like 16 years old and almost seems to be his like right-hand man. So I think they've got some decent players. It's just whether it matches up, as you said, versus like G2, who've just come off top 4 in EMEA.
I think on paper, obviously, against an opponent like G2, it's going to be tough for them. But like I said, if they knock someone out, even one of the big dogs, if they knock them out, I wouldn't be super surprised. Yeah.
I think it's like, so it would work out, like Anubis Gaming, if they lost, because we have the bracket now, they lost to G2, which is likely, they would play the loser of Fublist and Oxygen. I think that's a winnable game.
They can win that game.
Yeah.
It brings us on to Fublist, which you really can't talk about it at all, other than, I guess...
They have 9 players.
They have 9 players registered.
Brian,
we have no idea. But I don't think it's too mean to say, I don't think they should be here. Because the only reason why they are actually here is when you look back to Masters 1, NA had its own regionalized Masters event, SEA did, Korea. But the weird thing about EMEA, I guess because they were still trying to work out, like, ping-wise, if you were able to do Turkish teams versus CIS teams online. But Europe, CIS, and Turkey all had their own Masters events, which they were all able to get points for. Fublist got 120 points, I think, total during VCT, and 100 of which was winning their own Turkish Masters 1. They got 20 points for bottoming out pretty embarrassingly in Stage 2, and Stage 3 they were nowhere near qualifying. It was a sad state of affair, but because they've managed to get quite a high amount of points, they're still in the running, and it's still a pretty big organization in Turkey.
I was just going to say, it's one of those scenarios where it's the way the system works. Like, they got the points early, so it means that qualification-wise, I can understand why they're here, but they will have to step up their game a lot. Because that's the other thing as well. It's like, there's a lot of teams here, even I put Oxygen in the same bracket as well. Like, I think you could put most of the teams, in fact, here in that same bracket. Like, even maybe a Supermassive Blaze or a Guild, and you can say, like, they're not bad teams, but do they get the one spot? No, I don't think they do. I don't think they beat a G2. I don't think they beat a Liquid. I definitely don't think they beat a Supermassive Blaze, even on a regional level. So for them to compete here, well, having 9 players might help. Maybe if all 9 of them play, then I
at the same
they can
time
win themselves a match.
Yeah.
Yes, of course.
This is a team that just on the face of it is looking to bottom out almost instantly. And it could be even more embarrassing if they lose to Anubis as well on that route.
My biggest concern is, if you remember, if we cast our minds back to stage 2, they were one of the teams that just refused to get in with the meta. Like, all of the European teams, like, the way the Fnatic and Liquid, like, kind of worked around the meta, and everybody playing Astra at the time, or at least trying to play Astra at the time. I remember that this team was just like, nope, we're going to just literally do what we do and hope for the best. And if they come into this tournament with that attitude, I'm going to be really disappointed, because even if they don't do that well, I'm okay with that, because someone's got to lose. But if they come into this as like, no, we're going to just play Turkish Jet, that's it, just Turkish Jet.
They're running a KO.
That's the problem.
Comps at the moment. Like, they've got a KO coming in on Haven. They look like they've moved over to picking up Astra a bit as well. So I would say,
finally,
on the base of it, it does seem like they're trying to lean into the meta a little bit more.
Who's the player to watch then for Fubalist? We've spoken about Shalabi already for Anubis. So is there a player that, you know, if we're all on the desk for last chance qualifiers, allegedly, what is the player to highlight, do you think, when it comes to the stats and stuff?
For me, I'm not going to look at stats, but I'm going to just play off of my memory and what I remember, and from just like speaking and watching a little bit as well throughout stage 3. I want to point out Sturban. I think especially in the meta stuff that we spoke about, if he can like evolve a little bit more the last time we saw him, I think they have a better chance. I think in Turkey it's so easy to be like, yeah, let's get the Jet player that's just like insanely good on Jet, but they need more than that now.
OBG is going to be probably the weirdest one, because they have not been at a master, they've not been in EMEA playoffs or really that high in the CIS qualifiers. But I know that you've watched a lot of CIS, Tom, for the qualifiers. I think when it comes to, like, you got Gambit, obviously, you've got Forza, or you did at least, and now Na'Vi. I think the 2 teams that were behind them that never got to be at a playoff event were Singularity and OBG. There's Mincer and Spike on that roster still. What do they play? What should people expect from them?
It almost sounds a little bit harsh, but I'm almost focusing a little bit more on the players they've picked up. I know that obviously, as you said, like, people won't have seen as much, but I still think that, like, Zeddy and Coffee are going to be the highlights of the squad, and I'd be surprised to see anything else. So it's kind of like, I'm not disappointed that they picked up the players, because it makes sense. They get themselves a spot, they get an opportunity to actually fight, but there is a part of me that just thinks that they're going in as almost a worse team than what we just saw. Like, they've basically taken Fours. Fours did okay. Like, I don't think they were bad. They had an upset victory. I think Zeddy performed very well. I think Coffee had his moments as well. Like, the FPX game was incredible. Long, but incredible.
Yeah.
But then you kind of gone, okay, so this team didn't work. So now we're going to pick up 3 members and then have the remaining 2 that didn't qualify last time around. It's like that to me just ends up being a really weird roster to try and get something done with.
I think it's almost comical. It's like anything other than FPX. It's like FPX are so close. They could, like, you could smell it. As the tournament went on, and like Gambit, you know, doing better and better. I don't know about you guys, but I've been hearing whispers about Forza disbanding for like a month, even during the tournament.
I even mentioned it on the desk once, because it's been since before stage 2. About it. Yeah. So when they even got that far, I was like, I thought they were breaking up for like 2 months. I don't know why they.
just so funny because in Berlin, like I was having conversation with other players, they were like, yeah, it's probably going to be FPX because Forza are not going to play this tournament. And then the next thing we know, it's like they pick up 2 players and then we're in this limbo like, oh, is it going to be FPX? Is it going to be One Breath Gaming? No, it's not going to be FPX. Having said that, I don't think FPX are in shape yet anyway, perhaps to try and qualify for this. But in terms of this roster, yeah, I'm a bit confused by it, but at the same time, they might have that honeymoon period. Like we can't predict. Like it could be like a Giants situation where these guys just come in here and surprise everybody. I personally I'm not convinced that it's going to happen, but I can't write anything off, especially in EMEA.
I'll be honest. Look at their bracket, Ryan. Ryan, just look at their bracket. Tell me which team they beat out of. They lose to Liquid. They have to face either Guild or Supermassive Blaze. They're not winning a game.
I honestly think they're going to be the chaotic team of like either they get 13-0'd or they just beat Team Liquid 2-0 somehow.
If Supermassive Blaze beat Guild, I could see OBG beating Guild.
I think Guild will beat Supermassive Blaze, but we'll get onto that.
Yeah, I think so as well. But now we get to teams that we can sort of categorically rank because we've seen them recently, and I think we've all rated Oxygen Esports as the worst out of these 5, and when you look at the results from Stage 3, I don't think it's too surprising, Sue.
I do wonder if, I mean, looking at the bracket as well, I do wonder if Oxygen are able to beat Footballist, which at this moment in time, I feel like they should. They are probably the stronger team on paper. And G2 is going to be a tough one. But even if they lose to G2 and fall into the losers bracket, I think if they played SMB, it's going to be a close game. I think if SMB have their shit together and they play like a team and they just don't worry about everything that happened to Masters and they actually get back to being more cohesive, then yes. But I think that's a big ask in this moment in time. Whereas I don't think Oxygen have those luggage or baggages with them. So I do wonder if they might be the best Turkish team in this tournament purely because of that. Again, I don't know the ins and outs that much of SMB, but from what I heard, you know, and the way me on the desk, I can hear all the players, I can see all the players, and I can see the frustration. I can hear their conversations and the way they interacted with each other. If they interacted with each other like that again in this tournament, I think SMB are in trouble. The super team is no more. The risk of forming a super team of players that have never played together that much before is the fact that you get to a point where a lot of them will want to be the star player and a lot of them will they're frustrated because they can't do their own jobs. I think Turco and Brave, not so much in that kind of conversation, but even having 2 people like you mentioned, Russ and Izzy, being that way and the friction in game of like, okay, who is the star player? Who gets to do that? Who gets to do this? I'm just a little bit worried for them.
I don't think that there is a team in this tournament they cannot beat. I think that realistically,
I also
if they play
agree.
to the level they can, I think they can beat anyone. Even just look, like I do think G2 have improved an awful lot since the last time they played. But just consider the last time they played G2. They beat them 13-4, 13-5. They absolutely steamrolled them. They look like one of the best teams in the entire tournament. And the only team they lost to in EMEA was Gambit, who turned out to be the best team in the world. Yeah. So it's kind of like, I don't think there's any real problems other than their own issues. As said, I don't really know the inner workings of that squad. So I would say that if we're going purely off results, they should be the favorite. It's them and G2 that I put up there. Liquid is a question mark who've changed a lot of stuff. Guild have never qualified for a big event. So Supermassive Blaze should be right at the top of the list. So if they are like in their own heads or questioning whether they should stay together, that's one of the only ways I don't see them being like top 3.
They're going to be so upset with themselves as well, how they performed at Masters. They shouldn't be. It's their first LAN tournament, and none of their fans are.
They only lost to Ascend.
Exactly. They only played Ascend and freaking Paper Rex, and they only lost to Ascend. But, you know, mentally, you don't know how that affects you going to the next tournament, which is why I feel like for Oxygen, they don't have that. Like, for me, they are most likely going to stay together. I just can't see a world where they wouldn't stay together, even if they don't qualify.
I love the fact that, like, I think that sums up Oxygen pretty well. Is just you end up talking about another team over them because they're
no,
they're just
I like Oxygen. Oxygen.
They're just so like unassuming that it's like Oxygen. Nah, let's talk about Supermassive Blaze instead. They're more excited.
I just think they might have an
though.
edge.
I think
that's my argument. They have an edge.
Yeah,
Maybe.
they've obviously had changes to their backroom staff as well. They lost Turco, which is a massive loss as a player, brought in Unity. They lost to Giants, which I think all things considered, Giants are still running strong. They still look like a solid team. But they got battered by Team Liquid to knock them out the tournament. 13-1, 13-3. Again, it wasn't a 13-0 this time, but it's still like, I think they deserve to be here. At least they're consistent. You know, I think they got second in Masters 1. They got to stage 2. They got to stage 3. It's not the best performance for EMEA, but it's not tempered, I suppose, like Supermassive Blaze that maybe burned a bit too bright that they causing the tunnel issues.
Well.
I do think we'll move on to Supermassive Blaze because we've sort of amalgamated the two anyway.
Wait, I do just want to say that I really like Oxygen. Like I really like the
who's
team.
the player to watch?
Toronto. I would say Zisto.
Zisto too. I think Toronto is the obvious one on paper, but again, I think Zisto for me is also the player to watch. Clutch. And he does all the interviews. My guy, shout out.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's not just
He's the best.
No, I don't want to talk.
He's the best.
Mites has been playing more Astra as well, despite not really playing that many tournaments. I think it was one thing that we didn't see an awful lot of Astra in the qualifiers, but we did see it in EMEA. So that's an obvious reason why they maybe fell a little bit flat in playoffs as well. But so I think S&B, I think they just kind of need to get that shit on lock. And I think with players, people like Tani is just going to call it out when he sees it. You know, like it's, if they want to be the best team, they have to leave their egos at the door, which is hard when you want to be that star player. But I mean, look at Gambit again. Nobody is an ego there. They're all just believing in each other and believing in themselves as a team. So.
Also, they're not, for example, like if Defo was only playing Sova, for example, and giving someone else the jet role, I wonder if that would change the dynamic, because that's what we're seeing, right, a little bit on SMB.
Red Garen Reign full time. I'm going to give it to him. I'm going to give it to him.
You gotta. I think, actually, I'm going to jump the gun and just talk about my player to watch. It's definitely Russ. I think if Russ has a good game and Russ is on form, I think they're really, really, really fucking scary. Really almost unbeatable, I feel like. And I think that's a lot of pressure on his shoulders. Similarly as Brave. Brave would be my second player to watch. Yeah. Izzy's the no-brainer. Turco, you guys know what he does.
Name the whole team.
Yeah.
Pora,
everybody but Pora.
Pora for me, I think I would like to see what else he does, but I think Russ, if he's on form, unbeatable.
I don't know. I think Supermassive Blaze could be the biggest swing in this tournament from actually qualifying and looking insane to legit bottoming out, because their side of the bracket is super tough. And I think Guild can beat them, and OBG, you just never know what they can do in regards to the brackets.
I like to see Supermassive get quite far in this tournament.
I'd like to as well.
Definitely.
But I think another team that could go on a massive swing is Guild, because potential is through the roof with this team. They have some insane players, they have some insane ideas, but execution is sometimes just abysmal. So I'm curious what you Tom think, like what's going to be like for Guild this time.
I feel like that they're one of those teams that they have a lot of swing players. Like for example, they tried to switch things up to now put safe on certain maps into more aggressive roles. I like the idea, but it always seemed to be like for example, the thing with Guild was if your scene's having a bad game, a lot of the time they have a really rough time. And I think that they've still got those swing players where it's I worry if there's going to be that backbone for the team, especially with Bonker not necessarily putting up the same statistic as everybody else. Sure, he's in that supportive role. Sure, he's in the setup role. But if the player he's setting up is also not performing that day, they then fall off the wagon. I also think that, again, this is pure conjecture, but from what I've seen, they crumble under pressure. It gets to the moment where they have a chance to qualify, and every single time they fall flat. And then it's reliant on someone like Draken. The amount of times we saw him, wasn't there a 1v4 clutch versus Gambit on Ice?
Yeah.
Kept them in the map. Then we saw it on Bind again when they were in another matchup, trying to clutch the map. Those are positions that, okay, if he can win you those rounds, fantastic. That's one of the most valuable things you'll ever have in esports. If you then don't win still, it's you're winning these ridiculous rounds of pure individual brilliance, and then you lose the next one anyway. And that's the thing that's so frustrating with Guild is they have these fantastic players. They have these star players.
I'm going to go completely opposite to everything that you just said because B2B, baby! Bonker to Berlin!
It's still alive.
No.
Why are we going back? Why are we going back?
That I think it's about time we stop underestimating this team. I know they've given you reasons, like everything you said, when the pressure got to them here and there. This team has played more rounds of Valorant, I would argue, I would challenge, than probably any other EMEA team based on how many overtimes they go into. Like, when they lose, it's never like they get smashed.
If you exclude the events they didn't get to, then I'd agree with you.
Okay, well, it's not... You're toxic, Tom, toxic. But
it's
Guild,
true, though. Other teams
they are overtime fucking warriors. Like, that Giant series was literally almost a coin flip. It came down to who was going to go through. It was like the smallest of margins. And I think they know that. I think they are very, very self-aware, every single player, and Barbar as well. And as a team, I think they're extremely self-aware about some of their issues. I personally have seen improvement from them from stage 1, 2, and 3. I don't believe they're the same team now than they were in the beginning, even though they have the exact same number of players. And that's exciting to me. And I think...
Do you think they qualify?
I think it's not out of the question they qualify. I'm B2B.
If you had to put your money where your mouth is, do you think Guild qualify?
I think if Kellogg's gets like bird flu and then
flu?
I don't know. I didn't want to say COVID. I want to say something else that was serious.
Oh God.
Then yeah, I think Guild have a way higher chance than people think they do because
it was Oxygen that Guild lost to in stage 2 in EMEA, which is not a map. These are teams that, despite the games going close and good to overtime, they should be beating Giants at this point. They've been together longer than anybody else, I feel, at this point, with Liquid making changes. Like, there's no excuse to not be making any progress. And I think
I agree. I agree in terms of results, there's no excuse. And if they don't make top 4 in this tournament, I think I'd be worried going forward. But I do think I'm back. I need to sneeze. I'm allergic to this disrespect, you guys.
You actually have bird flu, so yeah, keep your distance from Kellogg's this time.
But honestly, I think I support the progression and improvement of the squad, and I think the expectations people set for this roster was so high. Of course, they failed to meet it a few times every single time it came to the big qualification games. But I don't think they don't make top 4. I think they should make top 4.
Oh, I think they make top 4.
I think they could beat Supermassive Blaze. I think they could beat Liquid, who is the next team I want to talk about, because...
Real quick, player to watch, Myers, Bonkar, go prove them wrong, my son. You got this.
Yeah.
I believe in you.
I'd like to
see... B2B. Bonkar to Berlin.
You've been hired.
I got you, Kakuka. Don't worry, I got you.
I would love, genuinely at this point, I would absolutely love to see Guild succeed. Because I do think that this roster has always been one that they're really exciting to watch. They have a lot of cool ideas. The supportive utility they use is fantastic. It's got to the point now where I can't say I believe it's going to happen because they've just fallen too many times. I think
the copium's low. It's like FPX almost.
Exactly. Yeah, but with FPX, I always had that hope. Whereas with losing to Giants, I don't think Giants are particularly bad. I just expect Guild to be better, and they weren't. That was just the fact of the matter. They were not better in that series.
What about Liquid then? Because they're also a team that I think has looked very wishy-washy with some great ideas, but maybe poor execution. Yeah, you could sort of say that. But I think what is going to be interesting is Navera coming into the roster, Scream's brother, ex-player from Vitality. I want to go to you, Tom, first, because obviously you did Counter-Strike. You have a bit more knowledge on how this player acted.
I think he has the individual ability, but I wouldn't just put him as he is Scream but version 2. I think that he's a young
They're so different.
Talent.
Yeah.
I think that when he came into the Heretics Vitality, he had those crazy pop-off games, even versus top-tier opposition. You're seeing him putting up really solid results versus Na'Vi, putting up numbers versus Astralis. So he went in at the deep end for sure. But the thing, I think the main thing that intrigues me about this roster, I don't doubt that he's going to be great at this game. Like, I think he really is going to be a standout player. The problem I have is where he fits in Liquid. Because I like, as a roster move, I think it's a great one based off potential. But going into your last chance, removing your Sentinel player, you're going to have to shuffle things around. I assume it means that Link's going to go over to the Sentinel role.
That's what it feels like. Like that's always been my problem with Liquid, is what I wanted to quickly say, is it feels like this almost impossible puzzle of, you could move Soulcast over to Sova, for example, but then you lose out on the Sky. Oh, well, you can move Yampi over to Sova. Well, then he can't really up. You could put Link on controller. But is he going to be in those clutch situations? You could put Scream on. He's always wanted to be on Duelist or whatever, or Sage. I think it's likely that Navera will stay on the Sentinel role, is what I'd say. But it is tough. Like the Cypher Sentinel, I think the Viper is just going to be a baptism of fire, and this is not the best first event to be playing in when it comes to coming into... Well, you're playing up against OBG that also have this problem, but still, it's Team Liquid in playoffs in the upper bracket, right? Yeah. So it's always a nightmare.
What I will say is that in terms of Navera, from what I've seen in Counter-Strike of him, he's very, very unflappable. Like, this guy has stepped up, for even though he was only playing like specific maps for his backhand vitality. And when he needed to step up, he always did. Like, he was never like coming in shaky, nervous, or letting him team down. I think he has that star player quality. And from interviewing him in the past, he's always said that he really looks up to Scream, and he kind of wants to either get that legacy similar to Scream had, or maybe even overtake that. So this guy, he's got motivation, he's got the star player quality, and he's got good work ethic from what I've heard. So I'm the only thing I'm worried about is, like you guys said, like, do you kind of force him onto something he's not comfortable with, or do you make everybody spoon feed him and baby him and hold his hand throughout this tournament? I don't know. I mean, I hope everything goes right, and I hope they absolutely smash it, and they find a way, and we see some cool, new, interesting, almost like reinventing the wheel stuff that we are expecting to see. But then at the same time, if it were me, I would probably just let them do this. Not almost like play like ranked. You still anti-strat your teams and stuff, but you have Yumpi, Scream, and Navera. Like, I almost feel like you just let them be Yumpy, Scream, and Navera, and then just try and get Link and Dom to be the anchors, and then set them off. Like, just go kill, do your thing. Like, play however you want.
Navera, for those that don't know, like, I think there's a lot of like, oh, is he just another boomer from Counter-Strike that moved over because he couldn't get any work in CS? He was dropped from Vitality because they were a 6-man roster, and Valve were like, you can't do that, it has to be 5. So he was dropped in mid-match. So he's had 6 months to potentially get involved and play this game. So he's had plenty of time to get to grips with it. And I think if you have anybody taking you through the game from a coaching capacity, but also just like, I'm sure Sliggy would help out a massive amount.
But honestly, for me, he's my player to watch on this team, and he might be my player to watch for this whole tournament. I think it'd be really interesting to see how he does. And like you guys said, if he's been playing Valorant this whole time, I'm super, super excited to see how far he can take Liquid.
Yeah. I'm really excited to watch him. Are they expected to be qualifying more than the teams that we spoke about previously? Like, do we fancy Liquid's chances more than Guild? Other than G2, basically, yeah.
Yeah.
I have them as my second team. Like, I think that from what we saw last time with Yumpy, it did take them a little bit of time to get him implemented, but that was also because he was playing like an absolute nut job half of the time.
Yeah. For G2, though, as the final team, I think they're the favourites. I think they're expected. Sure. And I think that when it comes to form at the moment, it's looking spectacular for them, considering how much they've grown. I think some people are going, oh, well, they got 13-0'd by Gambit in the semi-final. Like, they clearly can't be that good. I also just think that was just Gambit ascending. They effectively got, like, the invincibility mushroom or whatever from Mario, and just nothing could touch them.
It's just an anomaly, in my opinion.
I think the other thing I was going to mention is, like, G2 got 2-0. You look at the map pool, Breeze Icebox, and you're like, all right, fair enough. Like, if there was... Look, G2 on Ascent look insane. I was watching back, like, the F4Q game, and some of the executes, it's not only the executes with how they use utility, like Kellogg's updrafting, smoking the wall on B main, cutting around the corner, and then dashing onto the B site. it's insane technique, but it's not only the executes, but also the quick adjustments of the defending. There's players on a shot, they quickly get into a position where they can grab, they can flash, and they can shock dart from Cold Mentor in any given position. It's the fact that they're so good at improvising, of going, all right, they're in shot, let's quickly set up this nice little set play. Whereas Guild are like, oh, we need to make sure everything's lined up. It takes 5 seconds by the time the enemies have gone through. G2 are just so quick and responsive to anything that happens that I think they have some of the best utility usage off each other in the game, and they've only been playing with this roster for less than 3 months. It's absurd how good G2 are considering the time frame.
I think they started to use some of the strengths of the other players as well. Like, I really enjoyed seeing them like put Mixwell back on the Rays when they went into split. Like they started to realize, okay, we have this depth of talent and we can actually adapt on the fly and switch things up where maybe Kellogg's doesn't suit for Jet on this map, so we'll change the comp a little bit and put players in. I think Nuclear as well had an incredible tournament, which I don't think anybody was particularly surprised of if they came from EMEA. Like, the guy's been so good for so long. So I think that the thing that impressed me more about G2 wasn't necessarily that they were good, because I think we expected them to be. It was the fact that even in the tournament, you could watch their first game, their second game, and then their third game, and they improved in every single one, and they adapted their compositions to problems they had in the past, which I think at an event is really hard to do, to just go, okay, this didn't work. How do we fix this in a day? And they managed to do it each time. So,
and I think one of the bigger problems or questions that everybody had going into the LAN tournament was like, is Kellogg's going to be able to keep up? Well, the answer is yes, he fucking is. He's really the tempo.
Good. He's not keeping up, he's setting the tempo.
I think that's the really good thing about going into this tournament, because they don't have any of those questions or curiosities or unanswered questions anymore. They know who they are. They have this, like, I really like the identity they've managed to carve for themselves. And I think it's the first time since the Ignition series, and I guess even during the Ignition series days, I don't think they had an identity as strong as they do now of the players and of what they do and their style and of who they are. And I think that is huge for them. I honestly think if they don't qualify, is an upset. Even if it's like Liquid that beats them or SMB that beats them, I think they're too big of a favorites in this tournament right now.
Thanks for watching. This was a disaster, but it was fun nonetheless. And tune into Last Chance Qualifiers, because it's going to be fun and, yeah, best region and all that. Any final words, Tom?
Follow Tom on Twitter. He gives you gun buddies.
Yeah, we'll end on that. Thanks for watching.